Hello, everybody, and welcome to Casual Tech Review. If you watched the part one of this particular video, I lay out two build lists, one AMD based, one Intel Nvidia based, for $650. Let's go ahead and put both of those builds together, check out how they look, how they perform, and let's see which one sells better. Before we get into the builds, let's just do a quick overview of what the parts are that are going to be used in both of these builds for this $650 build challenge. It's the Sama Neview 4361. Both computers are going to have very similar motherboards, ATX form factor, B660 and B550, very similar. Both are going to have 32 gigabytes of DDR4, 3200 megatransfers per second RAM. Both are going to have a 1 terabyte NVMe. One is Gen 3, one is Gen 4. Didn't mean to do that, but that ultimately should not make that big of a difference. Both are going to have the exact same power supply, the Apevia 600 watt gold rated power supply. And lastly, they are both going to have the exact same CPU cooler, the Thermalright 120. As far as the variable components, the AMD computer is going to have the Ryzen 5 5600X processor and the RX 6600 XT graphics card. The Intel and Nvidia build is going to have an i5-12400, which is a great comparison CPU to the 5600X. The graphics card is going to be slightly better. It's going to be the Zotac 3060 Ti. There you have both parts lists. Real quick introduction. Let's go ahead and get the AMD build all put together. We can see how it turns out. I did run into a little bit of an issue with the AMD build, and that came from me not reading the item description on the motherboard as thoroughly as I should have. I got really excited when I got a good deal on this motherboard, but I missed this little part here. Motherboard only, no other accessories come with it, including the I/O shield. This can be a challenge sometimes to find one, and I really was not keen on not having an I/O shield in the back of this PC. I know you can do it. I do not like it. That's not something I wanted to do. So I did a search and tried to find an I/O shield that was a perfect match. Not possible. I went on Asus's website, couldn't find anything. So I thought, all right, well, maybe there's an IO shield from another motherboard that'll work. So what I did was I found a picture of the IO shield from this motherboard, threw it up on my screen, and then I started to look at other IO shields that were available and compare them and see what would fit. And I tried a couple of them from Asus B550 boards, nothing. And then I found this little guy, pulled it up. It's from the ROG Strix B550 Wi-Fi. Pulled it up and compared it. And lo and behold, look at that. It seems like it's a pretty good fit. So I went ahead and took a risk and ordered it. There is a couple of cutouts on the IO shield that do not work, or wouldn't be needed, rather, right? There's no ports on the IO shield on the motherboard for it, but I figured I would just cover those up, no big deal. So I got it, and when I was trying to test fit it, I realized that the IO shield for the motherboard that I didn't have, rather than clipping into the case, it actually had little brackets, which I'd never seen this before, that hook onto the motherboard. So I kind of just had to wedge it on there, and lo and behold, it worked. You can see here, it actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way that it worked out. And then I took a little bit of electrical tape and I taped over those back two ports. So ultimately, I think it looks a lot better than just not having one. And I didn't want to have to send it back and try to return it because it was a good motherboard. So all's well that ends well, although that did add a little bit of extra expense to this build. I think the AMD PC came out looking phenomenal. The red cable extensions, obviously symbolizing AMD, match really well with this really good-looking black case from Sama, the Neview 4361, one of my favorites, and just comes out with a really clean, nice-looking build. Let's go ahead and dive into some build footage from the Intel build. It was a little bit more complicated. The graphics card was pretty dirty when I got it. The AMD graphics card was brand new. Didn't have to do anything to that one. This 3060 Ti, super dusty. So you can see here, I took it apart. And when I got it apart, I realized not only was the thermal paste all caked on there, the thermal pads were absolutely toast. Had to replace those as well. Went ahead, repasted it, new thermal pads, got it all bundled up, and now it looks great, and hopefully it performs really well. So let's check out the Intel build. And to no one's surprise, this build also looks excellent. I went with the blue cable extensions for Intel. and it looks really good. Same beautiful case. The build is really, really clean, and I really like it. After the first video, I got a good bit of comments of people giving their opinions about which build is going to sell better, and everybody predicted this build would sell better. You can see here and here, and there was more comments as well. That was the overwhelming thought from folks, is that the Intel Nvidia build, given that they're so much more popular in the market, will indeed sell faster. So we will have to see. Here you can see both the builds together, and they look awesome. I really love this case and just the look that you get with the cable extensions and the RGB lights. Really, really clean builds. Both of these builds also performed really, really well. Here, let's take a look at the superposition benchmark scores from both of these builds. We'll look at the AMD first. You can see here I ran it on 1080p high, and I got a score of 13,540. I usually just look at the FPS numbers. It's got a minimum of 83, average of 101, and a max of 123. So very, very respectable for the 6600 XT graphics card. Let's take a look now at the Intel Nvidia build. It was obviously going to be better. The 3060 Ti is just a better graphics card than the 6600 XT. It got a score of 15,520, minimum FPS 95, average of 116, and the max of 157. So average FPS was about 15 higher with the Nvidia graphics card, and that's about what you would expect. But overall, still, both performed great. I also ran both builds through the Heaven benchmark. Here's the AMD score of 7193, average FPS 285.6, minimum of 10, maximum of 584. And the 3060 Ti, 7728 score, so a little bit better, average FPS 306.8, so around 21 FPS overall better. Minimum was pretty much the same, 9.9. Maximum was actually a little bit less, 576.2. But both of these systems acquitted themselves very, very well in 1080p high-quality settings benchmarks. So both builds are done, both builds are tested, and I finished them both up right before I was about to go on vacation. So I thought, all right, I'll get them together. I'll set them aside, and I'm not going to list them until I get back from vacation because I can't do anything anyway because I'm out of town. So I left for vacation, had an awesome time. You can see the beach here. I even got to see an old Civil War cannon get fired. That was pretty cool. But aside from having a great time on vacation, I did get a message from a former client's friend while I was gone. So it was right at the beginning of vacation. He messages and says, "Hey, I'm a friend of this other guy you sold a computer to. Do you have anything else for sale that's similar to it?" And I said, "Yeah, I actually happen to have two." And I gave him the specs for both computers. He said, "Okay." He said, "I'm interested in playing games and stuff like that. I kind of like the 5600X one. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, they're pretty similar. The performance is going to be comparable between the two." He said, "All right, well, I'll take that one then."
Yay!
So just like that, the whole experiment was ruined. Before I even had a chance to list both of these PCs, the AMD one was sold. So joke's on all of you guys, you that picked the Intel Nvidia build. You were all wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. So to review the total cost of the AMD build, the actual completed total price of it, because I had to add a GPU support in there, as well as the IO shield, an AM4 backplate, and a Wi-Fi antenna. I didn't realize I would need all that up front. Total cost of the AMD build was $624.41. I sold it to the gentleman for $850, giving me a profit of $225.59. The Intel build, I actually just got it listed up on Marketplace today, July the 27th. So we'll see how long it takes that one to sell. I listed it for $875. But in order to match the profit from the AMD build, I would have to sell it for $900. The total cost of the Intel Nvidia Build was $672.66 when you factor in Windows, and I also had to buy Wi-Fi antennas for that one as well. So the price went up just a hair because of those two things, a little bit over $650. It'll still be a decent profit, and I'll sell it for less than $875. That's fine with me. Probably $825 would be my bottom line for that one, so I'd make around $150. So between the two builds, the AMD and the Intel Nvidia, in this particular experiment, the AMD build sold faster and for more money. It's a win all the way around for AMD on this one. I was certainly surprised by the way this turned out. Obviously, the fact that the AMD build sold before I could even list them kind of ruined the whole experiment. Anyway, my plan was to list them both on the same day, but that isn't what happened. I'm happy that I was able to sell it that quick. That's definitely good news for me. Appreciate everybody watching. I want to give a special shout out to Rise Tech World. He's out there making some pretty interesting videos and doing a really awesome job. Check out his channel. I will link him in the description for this. I will also have a link to my Discord server. It's getting off the ground. My guy Ramon's doing a phenomenal job moderating that. He also posts different deals that he finds on Amazon and Newegg for great parts. I actually just snagged two Sabrent 1 terabyte NVMEs. They're pretty high speed. I think the read speed is 4,700 megabytes per second, so pretty fast. It's called the Sabrent Rocket, and it's got a really cool looking heatsink that comes with it too. I got those for $55 each on Amazon. So you can find some great deals on there. You can find some good conversation about PC flipping, some cool folks in the server already. Come check that out, and please give me a subscribe if you're enjoying the content. If you have any feedback for me, send it my way. If you have any ideas for any more build challenges you'd like to see, I'd love to give them a shot. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.